So this assignment is going to go over some of the basics using spreadsheets and how we can apply them to some science assignments. Basics and things that everyone should know how to do just to save time and kind of understand the value of spreadsheets, how to use certain things, etc. So let's say we're doing the reaction time lab, and instead of writing the information on a piece of paper, I just went directly into a spreadsheet. So if you remember that lab, you had 10 trials where you had to catch the meter stick between your thumb and index finger. And you had to measure the heights in centimeters, then convert from centimeters to meters, and then use the meter height and an equation to calculate your reaction time. So I've set up a table where I have room for 10 trials and then my centimeter measurements that can get converted to meters and then calculated over here to time. So, excuse me, I need to number my trials from 1 to 10. Now you could just do like type in 1, hit enter, type in 2, hit enter, and so on. But with cells like Excel or Sheets, Google Sheets, whatever, what you can do is if you highlight these two cells, and if you go down to the bottom right corner, when the cursor changes from a pointer to a kind of like a crosshair or a plus sign, when it gets to the bottom right corner and it changes like that, if you click and drag it, what it'll do is it'll repeat the pattern that you've put in there. So this pattern was, going from 1 to 2, etc. So it's just increasing by 1. But if I did something like, let me get rid of this. If I did January, okay, it understands the pattern that I'm trying to repeat, and it'll just continue it for me, okay? So this is just a nice little shortcut, especially if you have 100 trials and you need to put it in there. Instead of having to type in all 100, you just type 1, 2, click and drag until you get to 100 trials in the cells. Okay. Now I already have some made up data for my catches in centimeters, so I'm just going to paste that in there. Okay. So instead of doing the calculation or typing it in, I know that I need to go from centimeters to meters. I need to know I know I need to divide by 100 or move the decimal 2 places to the left. So this is a pretty repetitive, straightforward calculation. So instead of doing whatever kind of repetitive calculation on my calculator and then typing it in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the spreadsheet program do this for me. So I'm going to enter a formula. So to do that, you have to, in the cell, so in this cell right here, which is C4, I'm going to start by typing the equal sign. Now that is telling the spreadsheet program you're about to enter a formula. The formula that I want to do is I want to have whatever is in this cell be divided by 100. So all I'm going to do is just click this cell, and it has identified it as B4, and I want to take whatever is in that cell and divide it by 100. All right. Now an autofill suggestion came up. Do I want to repeat that for the rest of these cells? If I do, I can hit the checkbox. But for now, I'm gonna hit X so I can show you something else. Okay. Now, what if in one of these cells I put in centimeters? So I'm just going to do it for that one. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to repeat this calculation for all the cells below it. So to do that, it's just like repeating the pattern over here for trials. I click on the cell, and then I go to the bottom right corner, and when the cursor changes, I click and drag it all the way down. All right. So now what's happened is it's repeated the calculation, but it's doing it for, in this case, whatever's in this cell divided by 100, and so on. Now this cell gave me an error, all right? And it tells you text cannot be coerced to a number. So basically it's telling me I can't have any text in here. It can only do calculations using numbers. So I have to go back to this cell and I have to get rid of the text. It can only have numbers in here. All right. So that's one of the things to look out for when you're typing in any spreadsheet program. Only enter numbers in the cells if you intend to do calculations with them. And it's best to just put the units in the top of the column. That just saves time and errors. All right, the last equation over here, so reaction time. The equation that we were using for reaction time was the square root of 2 times the height in meters divided by gravity, which is 9.8 meters per second squared. So to type that in, I'm going to do equals square root. All right, so when I type in SQ, all right, it gives me this option for square root. All right, parentheses 2. You have to do the asterisk for multiplication. So 2 times whatever this information is in this cell, which is the height in meters. So I want this height divided by 9.8, close parentheses, hit enter. Okay, so there is my reaction time for that catch. Click and drag the equation, and there are all my answers. Okay, so by using Excel or a spreadsheet program, I can save myself a lot of time versus trying to type this out on a calculator and then typing it in. It might not seem like a big deal when there's only 10 calculations, but sometimes you might have 100 calculations that are repetitive. So it definitely saves you a lot of time in those situations. So in this first example, I'm going to show you why we use the dollar sign. So this is just going to be an investment example. We start with $5,000. We add $250 a month, and there's an interest rate of 1.5%. So in the month column, I'm going to type in January and then February, but I'm going to show you a trick so that you don't have to type every single month in. So once you type in the first 2 months, you can highlight those 2 boxes. And then when you go to the bottom right corner, when the cursor turns into a plus sign, you click and drag it, and then it basically repeats the pattern. Okay. Now the formula that I want here is I want to start with the 5,000. So there's no growth yet because that's my initial investment. But the next month I'm going to be depositing 250, and then there's a growth rate of 1.5% on the previous balance. So it's basically going to be 1.5% times 5,000 plus 250. Okay, so I want to enter that equation into the next cell. So I hit equal sign. I start with this, all right, the cell above it, which is the 5,000. Okay, plus parentheses the cell above it, which is 5,000 the previous month, times the interest rate, close parentheses, plus my monthly investment. Okay, hit enter. All right, there's my growth from the first month to the second. Now I'm going to repeat this calculation. So I go to the bottom right corner, click and drag it. It's repeated the calculation. However, there's not much growth. So what happened? Well, when I click in here, I can click in the formula bar and see what cells it's using to do the operation. And it's using the correct cells. But when I go to the next one, it shifted the cells down. Okay, now the only cell I want to shift down is the cell in the growth column. right? I don't want it to shift down away from my monthly payment or the interest rate. So I need to tell the program to always go back to those cells. I want it to always go back to this B cell and this other B cell, so B7 and B8 or whatever it is. Okay, so I use the dollar sign. So when you put a dollar sign before before the letter and then between the letter and the number for the cell, when you click and drag, it always goes back to that cell, whatever information's in it. One of the things you should do when you have a spreadsheet and it has multiple tabs and you want to have things organized and kind of easy to get to, it's good to have a directory tab. And then in that directory tab, you want to have links to all the other tabs or possibly to other specific things that you want someone to be able to get to. So in this case, the tabs that we have are super and subscripts, conversion calculator, etc. So what you do in the directory tab is you type in the tab names of the other spreadsheet tabs. So graphing, I did it in order, graphing, angles, conversions, etc. Then what you do is you click on one at a time, and then you go to link in the toolbar. And when you scroll down, you can see the tabs or links in this particular spreadsheet. Now, you could link it to other things. Now, here's another way to do it. Right-click, insert link, and again, right-click, insert link. You go to the bottom, sheets and named in this spreadsheet. And all I'm doing is for each one, I'm just adding a link. That's it. Again, you could add links in spreadsheets. You could add links to Word documents. You could add whatever you want if it's going to be helpful to the person looking at your spreadsheet. Okay, so pretty easy, straightforward thing you can do in spreadsheets. And then when you have them, you click it and it brings you to that tab. Okay, in this one, I'm going to show you how to use the convert function. So if you want to convert from, in this case, centimeters to meters, you have a list of values that are, or measurements that are in centimeters, and you want to convert them to meters instead of having to do, calculate it and type it all in, or put an equation in. You can actually use a convert function. So when you start typing convert, this option will come up. You can click it, and it opens up parentheses. And basically, what you do is you click the cell that you want to convert, and then you have to type, comma, then you have to type in quotes the unit that it's starting in, comma, and then in the next quotes the unit you want it to convert to. So if you look at this formula up here, right, it's going to take whatever is in that cell and convert it from centimeters to meters. And you have to type in, what you want it to convert to. In this case, if you wanted to go into inches, IN, and then the same as before in other sheets, you just click and drag the formula and it'll repeat it for all the other values. So there are times when we're going to need to do calculations using angles and trig functions. We are going to be doing this with degree measurements, but the default in Sheets or Excel is radians. So when we put in our calculator 30 degrees and we take the sine of that, it should come out to 0.5. But you can see right now it's not doing that. So I need to let the program know that the measurement needs to be converted from radians to degrees. So the way you do that is you just type in radian between the sine, open parentheses, and then the open parentheses of whatever cell you're clicking on for the data. When you do that, it does the calculation correctly. Okay, so you can see here the sine of 30 gives me 0.5. Now, to fix, see how cosine gave me 0? So to fix this, I want to make sure I go up into my formula cell and put the dollar sign so it always goes to the cell that has the angle measurement in it. So when I put the dollar sign in there and repeat the calculation or drag it again, we should get the right answer. I have to change, the second one has to be cosine and the third one has to be tangent. It doesn't change that when I click and drag it. Okay, so now here's a simple program to calculate the sine, cosine, and tangent of any angle I put in there. So 60 degrees, cosine is 1/2 of that. 45 degrees, sine and cosine should be equal, and then tangent would be 1 at 45 degrees. And 90, sine's 1, cosine 0, and so on. In this class, we'll use Sheets most often for analyzing data in the form of graphs. So this sheet, what I want you to do is I want you to be able to set up time 0 to 10 seconds in 0.5 second intervals. So you're going to kind of apply the methods we've used on some of the previous activities in this assignment. Over here, if you want to increase or decrease the decimal, that's what this in the toolbar, that's what this is for. So we want to have 2 decimal places. Now, in the yellow cell over here in the G column, you're going to put this formula in. So I've typed it in there for you to make it a little easier. So you can copy it from this cell. This is going to be the distance equation. And then over here in this cell, type in equals and then paste in the formula I gave you and then hit enter. Okay, so this is going to calculate the distance change based on the variables for initial velocity and acceleration. All right, now I'm just doing it by the click and drag technique instead of clicking the checkbox. All right, now in this blue or aqua colored cell, what we're going to want to do is paste this formula in. So copy this paste for final this formula for final velocity, and then over here in this cell, hit equals and paste the formula in. Hit enter. You can check the box now. Okay, so now this is calculating the velocity change based on time. All right, now we want to insert graphs for this. So go way over here and click into a cell and then hit insert graph. If you try to insert a graph by clicking a cell too close to the data columns, it'll try to interpret what you want to graph, and it might graph the wrong stuff. So you want a blank graph and then choose scatter plot under setup, right? Then go to the x-axis, click this little grid here so you can select the data that you want for your x-axis. And we want to highlight all of the time cells for our x data. Okay? So the data range we want is going to be the time data. And go over here. You can also select that label, time, and just select all the data, hit OK. All right? So that's our X data. Now go down here where it says add series. The series we want to graph for the first one is going to be the distance. So select all the distance data, hit OK. Okay, so here are my data points as a scatter plot for distance first time. All right. Now I want to insert another graph, but you see what just happened is it thought it wanted me to graph, all this other stuff. So I have to click a box way over here and insert graph so I can get a blank graph. Okay. So now this graph, I want to do the same thing, a scatter plot, but I want to do velocity versus time. Okay. So again, my X series is going to be time, so I'm going to select the time column again for all the data. Then for my series, I'm going to select the Y column. All right, so there are my two graphs. The next thing you want to do, and close this out just so I can show you step by step. I click the graph, these two dots up here, I want to edit the chart. So I want to customize this. So the first thing I'm going to want to do, if you want to change the style at all, like if you want to change the background, you could go to chart style and you can do those sort of things. You can make it transparent, you can make it yellow, whatever. But we're going to use white because if we ever want to print this, it's the easiest thing to do. Now, the color of the border, you can change that. It usually defaults to like a light gray. I made it black instead. All right, now chart title and axes title. So if you click this drop-down menu, you can select what you want to edit. So we're going to start with the title of the graph. Usually you want it kind of a title that's telling you what it is graphing. So in this case, distance versus time. You can change the font here, the color of the font. You can make it bold, those sort of things. So I'm just going to go through some different iterations to show you the changes that we can do. All right, next, subtitle. This is usually where you want to put your name. I want to center everything. Okay, there's my title and subtitle. Next, the axes need to be labeled. So I'm going to label the vertical axis, and that is distance, and I'm going to put the units in. That's in meters. Make sure you put the unit in parentheses. And do the horizontal axis is time in seconds. Okay, there, my graph is pretty much done now. As far as adding a trend line, you want to go to do that, you go to series, scroll down. If you wanted to change some things about the data points, like the color of the data point, the size of the data point, if you wanted to kind of make it a little more transparent, if you want to change it from circle to rectangle or triangle, you could do that all in here. Okay, so this is under the drop-down menu of series. Okay, we're going to keep it as a circle. I'm going to make it a little smaller. I'm going to put it to a 2-point. All right, now when you keep scrolling down, you see trend line. So I'm going to check that box off. Now, obviously, this is not a linear relationship. So when I go here and I go to the drop-down, it ends up being polynomial. Okay, that's the best fit for this these data points. Labels, I want to see the equation for this. So I want to check off use equation. Do not check off the show r squared. That's going to screw everything up. So you do want to show equation. Now when I click on that box, I can change the size of the equation so I can see a little better. Right? So legend font size. Right? So now there's the equation for that graph, that line for that graph. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to put a title. I'm going to add a trend line and use the equation, etc. So I'm just going to go through all those steps. Right? So under Customize, go to Chart and Axis Titles. Make a title velocity versus time. Put your name as a subtitle. Center everything. Change the font color to blue or whatever you want, but change the color. Make it bold. All right. Add your name as a subtitle. I know I'm going fast, but you can always pause the video, rewind it, rewatch it, etc. Now this trend line is linear, so it defaults to the linear, and that's fine. That's what I wanted for this one. All right. Then use equation. I'm going to change the dot colors here, make them red, or the line color, I should say, sorry. I don't want to have them labeled, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, so use equation. Okay, there is the equation of a line. So, slope y equals mx plus b. I'm going to make it a little bigger so we can see it easier. All right, there you go.